Welcome to Unit 6A, Polynomials. So in our first lesson here, we're really talking about naming and getting a common language as we work with polynomials. So a few definitions. A monomial. A monomial is an algebraic expression consisting of one term. So something like x or 6 would be a monomial. We could have them a little more complex, something like 6x squared y. That would still be a monomial because we only have one term. We're not adding or subtracting anything. Then we've got degree of the monomial. So the degree is the sum of all exponents of the variables. And we'll see some examples here in a little bit. But the degree kind of tells us and helps tell us the shape that the term will make if we were to graph it. So a polynomial is an expression of two or more algebraic terms. Excuse me, especially the sum of several terms that contain different powers of the same variable. So these are just polynomials or just lots of terms that are being added together. You could go on forever with these. And then we've got standard form. So standard form, we want the highest degree term first, and we order them highest degree to least degree. And we'll see when we talk about that here in a second. And then the degree of the polynomial. So now imagine you've got many terms being added or subtracted. And so the greatest degree, the term that has the biggest degree, is going to kind of control the whole polynomial. And you'll see what happens here. And then a binomial is pretty much a polynomial that only has two terms. And then a trinomial is a polynomial that has three terms. So let's look at a few monomials.
So
Notice
here
here
we're looking at the degree of the monomial.
Each
And
of
we've
these
got three
monomials is going to have a different
When we have
degree.
a term
So we want to
that
look
doesn't
at
have
the
any
variables.
variables.
And we
We
want
kind of
to
try to
understand
imagine
the power
that the
or the
variable
exponent power
is
of
there
the variable.
and what
if we
would
look at the
its
constant
power
number
be?
18,
So in this
we
case,
don't have a
imagine what
variable.
x to the 0,
But if
it's
we
just one, right?
did,
So
what
would its power
18,
be? We could also
remember
say
anything to the
18
0
x to
power
the 0.
is 1. So
Which would
imagine
still
we
just
had
make
x to the 0
18.
here.
So in
And
this
so
example,
that's where
18
any
has
constant
a
becomes
power of
a degree
0.
of 0 because we
Okay.
don't have a
For the
variable
x
there. Okay. So in the next monomial, 3xy to the third, notice how x has a power of 1 and y has a power of 3. And so in order to get the degree of that monomial, we just add those powers up and we get 4. So that monomial has a degree of 4. And then in 6c, the c, again, that we don't write that power of 1. So you have to understand that it's there and it's imaginary. And then the 6c has a degree of 1. Now we want to talk about classifying polynomials and writing them in standard form. Remember, standard form we talked about at the beginning of this video is when we rearrange our terms so that we have the greatest degree term first and then go from there. So in this case, if we've got -2 plus 7x, the -2 has a degree of 0. That's the degree of that monomial. And then the 7x has a degree of 1. So we have to, in order to be standard about things, we just rewrite that as 7x minus 2. Okay, now let's name it. So how many terms do we have? We have 2 terms, right? So this is going to be a binomial, and its degree is 1 because we have 2 terms. The 7x has a degree of 1 and the 2 has a degree of 0. So the greatest degree we have here is 1. So this is a first degree binomial. In our second example, we need to first combine like terms and kind of simplify it down. So we see here we have 3x to the 5th, and notice how we have that minus 2x to the 5th. those will combine to make 1x to the fifth. Yep, if we subtract them, that's what we're left with. And then our next highest degree term is going to be that 7x. And then finally we have that minus 2. So notice here how we have 3 terms. So a 3-term polynomial is also called a trinomial. Again, just a little bit of naming here. And the biggest degree we have is that 1x to the fifth. So this polynomial is a 5th degree trinomial. So here we're adding 2 trinomials together. And what I've done is I've kind of lined up all of my 2nd degree terms, my 1st degree terms, and then my constants. So now I can kind of add my columns, and I'm left with 8x squared. Notice how that 6 is a minus, so I end up getting minus 3x and then plus 3. So when we're adding polynomials together, we can add like terms. So they have to match with letters and degree of those letters in order to be able to add them. If any of these were not like, then they couldn't be combined and we would just create a possibly a 4-term or 5-term polynomial here. So here we are again, subtracting polynomials in this time. So remember, when we've got that minus there, we're subtracting everything inside that polynomial. And so depending on how you like to work with your polynomials and how you like to combine your like terms, you may want to distribute that negative to all pieces of that trinomial that we're subtracting. And you got to watch your signs, signs. So I've rewritten it again in columns, and notice what I've done here is I've turned my both my trinomials into actually 4-term polynomials because they don't have similar, they don't have the same like terms. Okay. Now, notice how I put it in parentheses and I have that subtraction. So now that I've got my columns lined up, now I'm in good shape and I can start to subtract. And again, you've got to watch your signs here. So now we've got the 2x cubed minus 5x cubed. That's going to give me a negative 3x cubed. Okay, and then we have that 4x squared, and we're really not subtracting anything from it because the second trinomial does not have an x squared in there, so there's no like terms to combine. And then in the 3rd term, here in our 3rd column, we've got that 0 minus the 2x. So notice how that's going to be a minus 2x, okay? Got to watch our signs here. And now here we have that magic of math, that minus a negative, which becomes plus a positive. And so in our final column here, we've got minus 6 or negative 6 minus a negative 2, which means really plus 2. So we've got minus 6 plus 2, which gives me the minus 4. And so when we're subtracting these 2 trinomials, our result is going to be a 4-term, 3rd degree polynomial. Pretty cool, huh? And again, these are just a couple quick examples of adding, subtracting, and simplifying, writing polynomials in standard form. We'll do a lot more and we'll have a greater conversation in class. Also, listen for some special names that we use for some basic polynomials, such as a quadratic trinomial or a linear binomial. Catch you in class.